Would I be the a-hole if I kept my father's money instead of giving it to his wife? Original post. After my parents got divorced, my dad started dating Betty. Everything started okay, but Betty became jealous when my dad spent time with me. She was never abusive, just passive-aggressive and saved her worst comments for when he wasn't around. I learned I can't trust her, but I am polite to her. Betty has a son, Frank, who is very greedy. When she met my dad, Betty stopped giving him everything he wanted. In 2009, he and my dad had an argument that ended with then 40-year-old Frank punching my then 70-year-old dad. My dad died a few months ago. The will was joint, so the estate goes to Betty, and once she dies, what's left will be divided between me, my brother Alan, and Frank. It's unlikely me or Alan will see any of it, because Frank will drain her until there's nothing left, which has already started. They got married in 1996, and in 2006, Dad changed the beneficiary on his IRA to only me. It's not part of the estate. She is very nervous about the IRA. My dad was fairly wealthy, so between his estate, her retirement accounts, and then selling their house for almost $1 million, she is not going to starve, but she is still nervous. Alan called me with all this info because the estate lawyer is sending me a letter about it. Betty told him not to tell me anything, but he felt he had to. I haven't gotten the letter yet, but they're maybe setting up a trust that she'll want me to sign the IRA into. I expect a guilt trip about doing the right thing and following his wishes. But the reason they had a joint will is because they couldn't agree on any other kind of split, as my dad didn't like Frank, and Betty doesn't like me. If I thought my dad had dementia, I might believe the IRA was missed, but he was very meticulous. It feels like making me beneficiary was his way of providing for me, knowing this would happen. It does not make financial sense for me to give the money to the estate and end up with 25% of whatever pittance is left, when I could have 50% of whatever is in the IRA now. I would split it with Alan. My other reason for not wanting to share is that I'm currently pregnant, and having this money would make being a stay-at-home mom easier, and baby would get a jump start on her college fund. Would I be the a-hole if I didn't give this money back to the estate and share it with my brother? I might be the butt phase because while I want to be ethical, I'm having some schadenfreude over being in control after she's treated me poorly for 30 years. I also don't need the money, but she doesn't either. So, other info. I don't know why she wouldn't call me directly. Either the lawyer said not to, or this is another example of her not treating me as an adult. My brother is my half-brother. He was estranged and came back into our lives in 2008. I feel like he would have been on the IRA too, after my brother came back into our lives. But before he had changed his will, my dad always had asked me to be fair with him, so I would give him his share. Now for the top comments before reading the first update. Not stay home. Your father changed it years ago. He wanted you to have that money. She has stuff left from him. Split it with your brother and live happily ever after. You don't owe her anything. But her trying to hide info from you gives off so many red flags. Actually, it very well could be illegal to sign it over to the will. There are rules about these things, and most won't be enforced unless it comes to the government's attention. But my grandfather actually wasn't particularly clear on some things, and if we'd reclaimed some things into his estate, it could have been viewed as tax evasion. Now, a good executor should know this, but greed makes people do dumb things sometimes. Under no circumstances sign the IRA into a trust. It was intended by your father to go directly to you and for Ellen. My dad always had asked me to be fair with him. If he had wanted it to go to Betty and her brat, he would have changed the beneficiary. That money was intended for you and your baby. I hope he/she is born healthy and happy. Long life and happiness to you both. Not stay home. The will was joint, so the estate goes to Betty, and once she dies, what's left will be divided between me, my brother Alan, and Frank. Unless your father was very careful in how he legally arranged things, there will be nothing stopping Betty from changing her will and leaving it all to Frank. It happens far too often. That might be why your father decided to leave the IRA to you, because otherwise you may get nothing. Yeah, my internet research without having the will in front of me or a law degree has been giving me differing opinions in what she could do with it. It all depends on how it's written, but I really don't see her wanting to leave me with anything, judging by past behavior patterns. Not stay home. Keep the money. Your father did this for a reason. Now for the first update. I got my mystery letter. It was pretty much what I expected. Basically, please give me the money because it's obvious that your dad thought this would be covered by the will. A demand for all the money to come to me, then filter down to you kids. Complete with a guilt-trippy paragraph about how they lived on their social security and withdrawing from their IRAs, and neither of them have a pension or other income. And I quote, "Only what we had saved over the years." There's also a line about how you can see that there is a large value to the items gifted to you and Ellen, which I'm not going to argue with exactly, except that I sincerely wonder if she thinks I'm an idiot and doesn't realize I know how to add. She just sold their house for almost $1 million. Or that I don't know what the apartment in Italy is worth, about $350,000. I find it very difficult to believe that my father didn't also have savings accounts / mutual funds. Plus, she's going to get widow survivor benefits in addition to her own benefits from Social Security. The items Alan and I were gifted come nowhere close to that. I think altogether, there is a car involved. We're divvying up maybe $100,000 worth of stuff. Maybe. If we can get a good price for the car. With just 2 sales, she could buy a house for $200,000 to $300,000 near her son and still have plenty to live on. But she seems to have her heart set on buying a house by the beach, which doesn't feel very much like my problem. From her letter, you'd think that this IRA has millions of dollars in it that she desperately needs to survive. But no. She tells me that it's worth about $55,000. That's 5% of just what she sold the house for. I genuinely think it's both pitiful and pathetic that she wouldn't just let it go. But I'm sure she has Frank whispering in her ear about making sure she gets everything she's entitled to. But now I do have a copy of the will. 2 things stand out from what she sent me. 1, the letter isn't on the lawyer's stationery, so there's been no official demand of any sort and I feel like it's unlikely that I'll get one. 2, nowhere in the will does it say that she couldn't just rewrite her will and give everything to Frank. Like I said in my last post, I don't trust her in the slightest. So I've contacted an estate lawyer so I can determine my next steps. Thanks for being here with me on this ride. I'll update again if there's anything more to say. She tells me that it's worth $55,000. Side-eyeing that one, it would be in her best interest to lie. It's good that he contacted an attorney to deal with her. And of course, when all is said and done, there's no reason you have to be in touch with her at all. You can let all communication go through the attorney. Not today, Hole. I would have reported her to the SSA, since you can't legally have more than $2,000 in the bank account. That is incorrect. Social Security payouts are based upon what you paid in during your work life. They are not need-based, they're not a form of welfare. It's completely irrelevant how much you have in the bank. You may be thinking of SSI, which is for disabled people and which is a needs-based thing. Thank you for being so sensible. I hate to see people get shafted in inheritance situations because they trust others to do the right thing later. Rarely does the right thing ever get done in the end. Now for the second update. There's not a whole lot to update on as for better or for worse. I haven't heard from my stepmother in months, but I suppose this is some sort of closure for people who care. About a week after I got the letter, she sent me a text message asking if I'd gotten the letter and if I'd made a decision. I said yes and no respectively. She hasn't contacted me since, so nothing since August. Since then, I've also had my baby 5 weeks early, so it's not like I have a lot of brain power to spend on her. I spoke with an estate attorney, and she confirmed that there's nothing legally my stepmother could do to get the IRA, so I was in the clear there. She also confirms that joint wills don't really exist anymore. So if my stepmother wanted to, she could just rewrite her will to exclude me, or me and Ellen, or whatever she wanted to do. This left me with the interesting problem of how do I get the money, considering I didn't know where it was. And I didn't really want to contact my stepmother and say, I am disinclined to acquiesce to your request, so tell me how to get my money. Because I felt like that would open up to a can of, I'm not going to tell you until you agree to sign it over to me. Luckily for me, the lawyer I spoke to was also the son of an old Italian man like my father. It mentioned that these old Italian men tend to pick a bank and never change. So I googled around for investment firms until I saw a name that rang a bell and I went, aha! Long story short, the IRA is now in my name. Had to take a disbursement for this year and sent half to Ellen. My stepmother has moved a couple of times, so I don't know her address to send my response letter to. And like I said, She hasn't contacted me since August, so I'm considering my hands washed of it unless she actually tries. So all's well that ends well for me. Alan, on the other hand, is still having to deal with her because of the estate. He's meeting with the estate lawyer tomorrow to get some questions answered, so I'll be interested in hearing what happens. One of the things she had mentioned to him is that she needs a car that my father left to Alan and I, appraised because of something, is worth over $5 million. The estate, I'm guessing, because there's no way the car is worth this much. She says there are tax implications, which doesn't make sense to me. But if she's really dealing with a $5 million estate, it's super extra petty that she was coming after me for $55,000. Now for the comments before the last update. Glad to hear that at least the IRA is in the right hands, and congrats on your baby. Hope you're both happy and healthy. Thank you. We both are doing just fine. Despite her being early, there was no NICU stay or any complications for me. Congrats on the baby. The estate tax exemption is currently $11.7 million per person, though I've heard that it might drop back down to the $3 million range. When someone dies, the widowed spouse can transfer their exemption to the surviving spouse. In other words, while it never hurts to get an appraisal when someone passes, I doubt it would end up having any tax implications. Thank you. That's what I thought I remembered from when my mom died. So the car would have to be worth $5 million on top of $6.7 million she would already have for there to be any tax issues, if I'm understanding correctly. The car was worth somewhere between $35,000 to $50,000, so no, probably not going to make a difference. It's also weird that she's focused on how much the car is worth, as if it will make a difference, and not the vintage farm equipment he left me, which is also only worth maybe $5,000 tops. Because, like, if we're appraising things, shouldn't we appraise everything? I find it telling that she saved all her hatred for you and not your brother. I'd say it's because I didn't grow up with her. He's 20 years older than I am, but she's also misogynistic anyway. It's one of those things that I feel like I can't explain to people, because on its own it doesn't mean much, but she treats me markedly differently when I have a man than when I don't. If I don't, she acts like I'm a little better than a child. Oh, and when she was asking about if I had made a decision, she asked if I had talked to my husband about it. I told him and his response was, "Why would you talk to me about it? It's not my money." I also find it weird that presumably she'd think my husband would respond with, "Oh yeah, definitely give her the money." So glad to hear you got that sorted, and congrats on your baby. My husband and I went 3 years of legal drama dealing with his mother's greedy ex-husband, and it was a nightmare that ended with the children getting sweet FA for what was left to them by their parents. So consider yourself lucky it's over with. And now for the last update. I'm not sure if I'm making this post for me or for you guys, but at least this is a chronicle of the issue in case anyone asks me about it later. After my last update, there was silence for a while. Then my stepmother sent me a Christmas card with another letter inside it, but I'm sure that particular irony was lost on her. In it, she explained what she was going to use the money for health insurance payments, but once again acting like this money is what's keeping her from the brink of starvation. This letter, however, had a return address, so I did what any red-blooded millennial would do, and Googled it. One visit to the Country Deed website later confirmed for me that she has bought a beach house. Well, it's not on a beach. It's in a beach town, being purposefully vague here, for $745,000. She ended the letter by saying that she had talked to my cousin who told her that I saw the money as being able to continue my father's memory, and what she felt I should accept are books, photo albums, etc. because those are my father's memory. But that she'll discard them if she didn't hear from me by the end of the year, because it just proves I'm all about the money and nothing else. I'm sure the irony of me being all about the money while offering to replace it with material things while really wanting me to give her money is also lost on her. Also, the attempting to sell me memories was a nice touch. As I finally had an address to respond to, I wrote what my BFF described as the most polite bridge burning ever and sent it off before her deadline. She called yesterday, which I did not answer. She left a message saying that she just received my letter that day. I know the USPS sucks right now, but almost 2 weeks for a letter? And to call her back so she could clear some things up. Her tone was very hostile, so I'm disinclined to call her back. Honestly, I don't really want to hear what she has to say, and I'm not sure why she would think I would. Like, there's really nothing she could say that would convince me to give her the money. And she'll probably just yell at me like I'm the kid she still thinks I am. Hopefully this doesn't escalate. And if it does, I'll update. Block her from your phone, email, and social media and get on with your life. There is nothing she can do to you legally, so just ghost her. I'm sorry your father married such a miserable witch. Let her treat his kids so terribly. What an a-hole. This is what I'm leaning toward, but I can't lie and say it doesn't give me a sort of sick sense of satisfaction from her attempts to contact me. My BFF thinks she's a narcissist, and I imagine my lack of contact infuriates her. I spent a really long time not trying to rile her up for my dad's sake, but he's gone now, so I feel less inclined to bow to her whims. What is there to clear up? Lol. Her debts. Ha ha ha. Nothing else. Honestly, I would be compelled to call her in order to hear what she wants to clear up. Your father made a very specific decision about his IRA after he was married to this woman. As I think she has no legal claim to the money. Aren't you curious to hear what more she possibly thinks there is to discuss? It's a bad idea to engage this level of crazy. I'm curious about what your letter said. I tell her that you better lose your number or you will try to lay claim to her beach house. Obviously can't do that, but maybe the threat with the knowledge that you got her money-grabbing number will get her to crawl back in her hole. She's either pissing through the money, or she promised Sonny Boy the car and IRA, and thought you and your brother would just blindly sign everything over her.
My girlfriend forgot to log out from my phone, and I read something that changed our relationship. There was a time when my girlfriend and I were going through a really rough patch. We were finally trying to fix things, but it wasn't easy. There was a lot of uncertainty, a lot of silence. We both wanted to make it work. We were choosing each other, but still, that doubt lingered. One day, we were on a bus and she didn't have her phone, but she wanted to show me a Tumblr post she had saved for me. So she logged into her Tumblr account on my phone and showed it to me. That was it. I didn't think much of it at the time. Later, when I got home, I saw she had forgotten to log out. I was about to do it myself when I noticed a 1 next to the Drafts tab. Just one draft. Curiosity got the better of me and I opened it. I had no intentions beyond that, just curiosity. We both write from time to time because we are into books and poetry and stuff. Inside the draft, I found a few lines. Something like, "Oh, but how do I love you when there is none of me left? My soul is shattered, and I do not know what to do with the remains." Not the exact words, but close. They stuck with me. They hurt. I knew she had been through some terrible things, and I didn't want to be selfish, but the thought started creeping in. Does she not love me completely? Am I just holding on to something that isn't all there? I logged out of her account. I didn't say anything, but I couldn't shake the feeling. I tried, but it just kept hurting the whole day. The next day was a special occasion for us, one of our days. We usually write each other letters, little ones filled with feelings. I gave her mine. She smiled softly and said she didn't write one this time. Instead, she handed me a book, 6 of Crows, one of the 2 books we had exchanged back when we were just starting to fall for each other. It had emotional weight. She told me to open it once I got home, so I did. There was a tiny piece of paper tucked into the front, asking me to turn to a specific page. Page 147. I flipped to it and found a passage she had underlined. Many boys will bring you flowers, but someday you'll meet a boy who will learn your favorite flower, your favorite song, your favorite sweet. And even if he is too poor to give you any of them, it won't matter because he will have taken the time to know you as no one else does. Only that boy earns your heart. And just after that, a character thinks, "I'm not sure I have a heart to give anymore, Papa." But right there, next to that line, my girl, in her beautiful handwriting, had written, "But when you do find the one, the shattered remains of it will stitch themselves back together and will only beat to his name." I set the book down and just sat in silence, crying. She never knew I read that draft, and I still haven't told her. But in that moment, I knew. She loved me. entirely, in her own quiet, aching way. It's been a long time, but ever since then, our relationship has only grown stronger. I love her so much. Now for some comments. My husband looked me in the eyes, smiled, then proceeded to unclog the toilet for me, and that's how I knew he loved me in his own quiet, aching way. Congratulations on also finding true love, OP. LMFAO, congratulations to us both. In a similar light, I'm 21 and already having to turn to adult diapers. Before I finally caved to the reality of my situation, I wet myself at my boyfriend's. I called him to the bathroom, asked if he could get me a towel and a change of underwear while I was trying not to cry, and kept apologizing, saying I was super embarrassed. He came back with those things, gave me a kiss, and told me he loves me, and that he would never blame me for something I can't control. That's when I decided he's the one. If I piss on your floor at 21 and you're fine with it, I know you'll be fine when I do it again at 70. Well, that was a plot twist. A good one. Seriously, nearly in tears here. Yeah, I cried that day too. Next story. I saved my daughter from having a toxic mom. I, 29 male, got my then girlfriend pregnant as a teenager. We didn't find out until later in the pregnancy. My girlfriend didn't find out the gender because she was convinced she was having a boy. It turned out the baby was a girl, and my girlfriend freaked out. There was no way she could be a mom to a girl. A girl would be way too difficult. She was meant to have a boy. She tried co-parenting for the first 9 months of my daughter's life. She clearly wasn't happy or enjoying time with my daughter. I had endless support from my family, so I decided to give her an out. If she wanted to give up her rights, she could. And I would raise the baby myself with support from my family. That's exactly what happened. It's been over 11 years since then. I have the sweetest, silliest, smartest, girliest 12-year-old daughter. We have made a great life together. Friday, I saw a few friends from my hometown. When talking and catching up, I was told my ex-girlfriend, my daughter's biological mom, is now a huge boy mom and makes it her whole personality. I decided to look her up on social media. They weren't exaggerating at all. All her posts were about her 2 young sons, how she loved having boys and being a boy mama, how her boys have shown her true love, etc., etc. In that moment, looking through her social media, I realized I made the best choice for my little girl. My daughter is exactly who she is. She loves sparkles, pink, is a competitive dancer, can also kill it on the tennis courts with her pink racket, loves getting dressed up, is dramatic in the best way possible, can always make me laugh and put a smile on my face, is the best buddy for a long road trip, is very talkative, etc., etc. I couldn't imagine my daughter being any different than exactly who she is. She's my shining star. I think if her birth mother had stayed in her life for too long, it would have dimmed my daughter's amazing personality. Your daughter sounds great, and your ex sounds like the type of mom her kids' girlfriends will dread in the future. It's also sad that she thinks girls are too much work, because she's basically saying she's going to put no effort into parenting her sons, which has literally led to the current issue of boys and men barely being self-sufficient and expecting their wives to do everything. Good luck to her kids. Your daughter is lucky. I never get moms who are like this. It comes off almost incestuous to me. I happen to be a mother with a boy, and the term boy mom makes my skin crawl. A mom is a mom. My mom wanted a boy as well, and I could sense her rejection in every action. I'm sorry you dealt with that. I couldn't imagine rejecting my child because of their gender. For what it's worth, I was a girl who was shamed and put down for liking anything remotely girly growing up. Conservative Mormon family, second youngest of 10 kids and youngest daughter to boot. It wasn't until I was all grown up and cut my family off that I learned a lesson that it sounds like you've already taught your daughter. You can be a badass and be girly at the same time. I learned how to carve wood and fix 3D printers while wearing a tight dress and high heels. I kick my boyfriend's butt at video games and then arrange a bouquet of flowers. Your daughter dominates on the tennis court with a pink racket. All of this is to say, I wish I had a parent like you growing up, who taught me that liking pink and sparkly things doesn't make you lesser. It makes you freaking awesome. That's awesome to hear. Glad you were able to realize that as you grew older. My daughter is everything girly, but can also hold her own in anything seen as masculine. Like will roll up her sleeves and help me with projects around the house, while wearing sparkly pink nail polish and plenty of jewelry. Will yell and root for sports with me, and then perform a beautiful dance piece. Next story. Being an affair baby made my parents hate me as I grew up because I started to resemble my biological father. Long story short, I was conceived by an affair my mom had with another guy. My non-biological dad took her back eventually, and they decided to raise me along with their other kids. I've had a rocky relationship with them, to say the least. As far as I remember, my relationship with my parents was decent when I was young, but it got worse and worse as I got older. I noticed it particularly leading into my high school years. I was homeschooled my entire life along with my siblings, but for some reason, my parents decided to put me in public school full-time when I entered high school, and I was the only kid they did this to. It was daunting enough considering I didn't know anyone, but on top of that, it felt like my parents just started hating me. It became impossible to talk to them because they would lose their temper at me so much, but also they quit doing things for me. Helping with schoolwork, buying me clothes when I grew, attending my sports events, driving me places. Just stuff like that constantly. I remember I broke my phone my sophomore year and didn't get another one until the middle of junior year. On top of that, the sex ed they gave me was absolutely suffocating. I didn't take sex ed in school and had a hard no dating rule through high school, which was a shame because I got lots of attention from girls. When they gave me the talk, it honestly was just a big scolding. They were always preachy and weird about romance and relationships because they are religious conservatives, but they were particularly harsh with me considering my situation. By the end of my talk, I still had no idea what sex even was. In fact, I literally didn't know what a female genital looked like until I saw one in person with a secret girlfriend. The only time they ever acknowledged my sexuality was when they took opportunities to shame me. My adulthood was the complete opposite, though. As soon as I graduated, I was sent on my way with a trade job and moved out, and they had absolutely no rules or involvement, total distance. Meanwhile, they paid for my other siblings to go to college. I think it was hard on my family seeing me grow up because I started to resemble my biological father. I don't know much about him, but I guess I started to look, sound, and act like him, which my dad angrily pointed out on a few occasions, and so did my extended family. I became taller and, honestly, better looking than my siblings, which intimidated them and made my parents even more uncomfortable. It's pretty seriously affected my ability to make friends and have romantic relationships in my life, which is a shame, because it's all I've ever wanted for as long as I can remember. But even getting female attention currently makes me nervous and uncomfortable because I despise my own genes. Me just living in my own skin is repulsive to me. I'll warn dads out there raising kids like me. I hope you aren't too haunted by the other guy because as the kid grows, he's probably going to remind you of him more and more. My mom hates my deadbeat father and takes it out on me. She says I'm just like him, then lists all the bad things about him, that he's stupid, lazy, selfish, etc. I wish parents would not take out their mistakes on their children who had no choice in the matter. Sorry to hear that. It really is unfortunate that parents do that, because it just never helps anything in my opinion. It always just makes the kid resent themselves for no reason. Please call out your father for staying married to a cheater. Even though you weren't to blame, he needs to know that the anger of raising someone else's kid should have been directed towards your mother, as she had the nerve to be angry at you for existing when she was the one who decided to spread her legs for another man. Send them your Reddit post, because if that's how they act, then why didn't your dad divorce your cheating mother, as it was her fault to begin with? Yeah, it's a really touchy subject in our family, and I've always thought about calling them out. But at this point, I'm just afraid to. Something about it feels like I'm violating nature to speak up. But yeah, I wish my dad wasn't so haunted by this. I think part of the reason my mom was distant is because she didn't want to honor the other man. But I probably won't ever show them this post lol. It'd cause way more problems than solves probably. Last story. How do I tell my girlfriend why I won't get a vasectomy? My girlfriend, 23 female, and I, 21 male, are extremely close. She's my best friend. We've been together for 3 years, and eventually we're getting married. But it's not a huge priority right now due to college and other situations. She's very innocent, and therefore believes it's impossible we would ever split up. I admire her enthusiasm and don't see it happening either. But coming from divorced parents, obviously I know rational people don't get married expecting a divorce, and that anything is possible. Neither of us want kids, but especially not her. I could do it just fine if she really wanted them, but I'd prefer not to. Now, with that being said, if we were to break up, and I ended up with another woman who really wanted kids, I'd like to be able to have the option. I've never been a fan of burning bridges, and I'd consider my balls a fairly good bridge lol. My girlfriend has been cheated on and had rough relationships in the past with other people, so she struggles with trust. I'm worried that if I tell her this, she'll have the thought in the back of her head that I'm planning to leave her for someone who wants kids. Obviously, that's not true, but why create unnecessary stress? Therefore, I'm not sure how exactly to tell her this, or if I even should. Up until now, I've just been telling her that I'm afraid of the operation, but I hate lying to her. For some more context, she has major anxiety around doctors and related fields, so she is super against tying her tubes, or something similar, which I definitely understand. She also doesn't do well with over-the-counter birth control. Her hormones don't agree with them, unfortunately. This is one of those situations where no is a complete sentence. Love how the girlfriend has all these noble reasons for not preventing pregnancies using methods under her control, hates doctors, bad hormone reactions, etc., but is forcing someone else to go through a procedure. Tell her you are not comfortable with it, just like she is not comfortable with the options available to her. Since she is the one deciding against kids, the onus is on her to prevent them, with your cooperation. This is in her absolute control, and there are other options besides OTC. She seems to be finding all the reasons that would make the only option be for you to do your surgery. Manipulative and controlling. And we would say the same thing if it was a woman asking this question about her partner wanting her to tie her tubes against her desires. This situation is actually a no-brainer. Equal consideration to each party involved. This was one of the reasons I was wary to post here. I feel like sometimes Reddit can be a place where OPs word their posts to villainize the other party. She is in no way manipulative or controlling. My mom did that to me for years as a kid. I know what it looks like, and it's not my girlfriend. I appreciate your insight and warning, but she's no villain here. She's my partner that I want to work through this in the best way possible with. And I came here to get some extra external opinions. Thanks. You're 21 years old. Things change. Don't make any decisions that could affect your whole life. I agree with this regarding kids. Some people know at 21 they don't ever want kids, and that never changes. Some people at 21 don't ever want kids, but then they change their mind. Some people at 21 want kids, but change their mind later, and don't. What we want in our 30s is often different from what we want in our 20s, because we become different people. At 20, I knew I never wanted kids. At 22, it flipped, and today I know I want at least one. Of course, things can change, quickly or slowly. In my case, I was with the wrong partner, someone who wouldn't have been a good parent. Now I'm with someone who would be a fantastic one, and that's what changed it for me. Edit. I hear you guys. I definitely agree. We're young and have a long ways to go. I definitely should have prefaced by saying that this isn't a decision we're wanting to make this instant, just a conversation that has come up before, that I wasn't exactly sure how to talk through. We're working on her anxiety because I agree that a doctor could have some good insight as to prescribed birth control or even other options. I also hear you guys that vasectomies are reversible, which does make it much easier to stomach. I did know this, but I guess I didn't weigh it as much as I could have. Additionally, she's not pressuring me to do anything. I might have accidentally given off the message that she was pushing me toward getting it, which isn't true. She just mentioned it. I said no, and that was the whole thing. I just like to always have reasons for things, and I feel like she deserves to hear mine. Thanks for the insight. Didn't expect this much attention. I hear everyone's insight and I greatly appreciate it. I definitely have more maturing to do, thanks. I've got the info I was looking for. Am I the a-hole for ending a relationship because she wants full details of my wealth after 2 months of being together? A couple of my friends thought that I acted wrongly here. I'm curious what other people think. I, 40 male, just ended a 2-month relationship with my now ex, 39 female. I'll call her ex. I ended it because she pestered me to know about my finances. Despite me saying that I wasn't comfortable letting her know something like that so early, both of us were divorced once already, and we were both the person who asked for the divorce. Neither divorce was terrible. We both divorced for emotional differences. I tried to keep my finances on the down low for obvious reasons. I've lost a few friendships and had to break contact with more than one family member due to money, people who asked for help and blew it. But this is pretty easy to do because I don't live lavishly. I ride a bike most of the time and I live in a relatively modest house. However, I don't work currently, aside from some volunteer work, so that's the one thing that stands out. I made some really good, lucky financial choices early in my life. I bought a house at 17 with money I saved from a young age. My dad arranged the mortgage under his name, but I paid everything and took over the mortgage when I was old enough. And I worked hard to pay off the mortgage by the time I was 24. Long story short, this gave me a serious advantage with finances in my 20s, and I made a lot of investments, some of which paid off big time in the past few years. Crypto. Today I don't work, but I'm not decided on being retired. I have some projects that I'm thinking of turning into a business. When X and I met, finances weren't discussed at all, and she seemed really down to earth. She even said a few times that money doesn't matter to her. I tried my best to keep my finances hidden from her because I didn't want to have an inaccurate sense of her feelings for me. After being together for about 3 weeks, the subject of my finances came up because of the fact that I don't work. I told her about my young home ownership and having my mortgage paid off, and that I have enough money to not work. I shared with her the general sources of my income, but I refused to tell her how much money I had, which was what she wanted to know. I told her that was a boundary that I was setting, and I didn't want to share that kind of specific info. From that point, she seemed very fixated on finances, and her personality started changing. She constantly talked about lavish things she wants to do, like expensive trips, etc. And most of all, she did not give up on the questions about my finances. This continued consistently, and she would ask me specifically how much money I had and how much I had invested, etc. It almost became an argument once. She raised her voice about it and quickly cooled herself off about it and changed the subject. I wrongly told myself that cooling herself off like that was a good sign of maturity. Maybe it was. Each time she asked about it, I set a clear boundary by saying that I didn't think we were at a stage of our relationship where we should ask each other things like that. She would agree and then slowly weasel her way back into the topic by the next time we saw each other. We weren't dating heavily, I would say. We're not teenagers who spend every waking moment together. We saw each other maybe 2 to 3 times per week, and she would spend the night occasionally, and we spent 2 entire weekends together. Maybe that's serious, but I don't think so. And we hadn't yet ever discussed moving in together, or much less marriage. So we weren't at a stage where I felt it was appropriate for us to ask each other things like that, especially when I had given her what I would consider to be enough information. Anyways, I broke things off this past weekend, and it didn't go well. She was very emotional about it, which I didn't expect considering the fact that I thought the relationship wasn't very far along. The only point I made in the breakup was that I felt like my privacy was being invaded because we had not reached any kind of relationship milestone that I would consider talking about things like finances. I told her that I could understand if we were talking about moving in together. She might want to know how financially secure I was. I talked to a few of my friends last night about the breakup. They had all met her once, and they liked her. 3 of my friends agreed that I acted immaturely. and that I shouldn't have been so secretive. One of my friends said, it's unfair to hide something like that because everyone else at least has a ballpark idea of how much money someone makes as soon as they know what kind of job they have. And she didn't have info like that, which is unfair to her. I didn't agree with this because it's foolish to make assumptions like that, combined with the fact that she said multiple times that money didn't matter to her. I'm curious to hear what other people think about this. Edit. Lots of people seem to be under the impression that the big issue in this relationship was that she was a gold digger. It's not that. The issue was that I was setting a boundary, and she repeatedly chose not to respect that. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Real talk here, friend. If she asked you once to ensure that you aren't El Chapo's long-lost cousin, I get that, especially because you don't need to work for right now. That's fair, but to keep fixating on what she would like to do with your money? Nah, hard pass. Time to move on. I generally agree, but there's also the possibility that she was concerned he was going to run out of money and she'd be footing the bill for things if their relationship evolved. For all we know, she's had experiences with bum dudes that don't work and also don't have much money. Her suggesting lavish things may have been a way to get a better understanding of whether he has a lot of money or not, when asking him directly didn't work. Either way, she was out of line, or at least very poorly communicated her concern that he didn't have enough money for the future. Or maybe she was a gold digger. We'll never know. Who are these jackass friends? You have experience with people changing when they find out about your situation. She just got a hint of it and was already planning on how to spend it. Admittedly, the friends who felt this way are not my closest friends. We have a friend group of about 12 of us, and these few aren't as close to me as the rest of them. And it was really only one of them that was hard against my choice. The other two who were just like, well, I wouldn't have been so secretive. I get the sense that some of them have been burned by secrets in a relationship before, so I'm not going to judge too much. Not the a-hole. You're 40 and retired. Someone you're dating will absolutely have questions about what's going on. I think she was prying too much and you did tell her you weren't comfortable answering. But I do think you need to maybe be a little more appropriately honest here if you want to move forward with someone. I do get some gold digger vibes from her, but if you're not working, I can also see someone trying to figure out if you're not a deadbeat since you're not working. You know, it goes both ways sometimes. Maybe not this time though. You're 40 and retired. Someone you're dating will absolutely have questions about what's going on. I definitely expect this kind of question when someone notices that I don't work. If you're not working, I can also see someone trying to figure out if you're not a deadbeat since you're not working. Indeed, but she knew that I had enough money to live from the proceeds of my investments. And she knew that I volunteer for non-profit orgs. I didn't share this in my post, but knew that I work as CFO for 2 different non-profits, and I do some manual labor work for a local charity that provides food for low-income families. I also keep my house very clean. I exercise often. I bike as my main source of transportation. There definitely wasn't a reason to suspect I was a deadbeat or lazy, etc. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not claiming my friend's mistake on my insurance? I, 26 female, and my friend from college, 26 female, both moved into the same apartment building. She lives on the floor above mine. One weekend, she put me along with a bunch of our mutual friends in a group chat because she wanted to have a barbecue on our roof. She has hosted many before, but this would be the first one I ever attended. Because I don't eat red meat, I did not eat anything that was cooked on the grill, and only brought chips, a bottle, and paper plates. When the day was over, the group of us went downstairs to watch a reality show. My friend who lives in my building and the girl who owned the grill discussed that they would leave the grill to cool off. Once the reality show was over, I went back to my apartment and went to sleep. The next day, everyone in my building receives an email saying that there was a fire on the roof last night because someone dumped coals in the trash can on the roof and they relit due to the wind. I took a screenshot of the email and sent it to my friend, who then put it in the group chat of everyone. Her and our other friend who owned the grill told us that they decided to take the grill home the same day because they didn't want to have to come back and get it the next day. So the girl in my building gave the grill owner her keys to go get the grill on the roof. and the grill owner decided that it would be the best thing to just toss the coals into the trash can on the roof. Our building requires multiple key taps to get on and off the roof, and they also have cameras. So they immediately told my friend in my building she was responsible since it was her guest using her keys. A week later, my friend came to me and asked me to put it on my insurance, since she nor the grill owner had renter's insurance. I spoke with a few lawyers and my old insurance agent, and they all said that this would be fraud. So I told my friend I did not feel comfortable doing so. Another week goes by and she asked me again. Because she believed that she would have to go bankrupt over the situation, she did not. I again said no because I did not feel comfortable and reiterated that I was told that this would be fraud. From then, she started to run a smear campaign, saying that I was the bad friend, and all of our friend group stopped talking to me because they said that I should have at least tried to put it on my insurance. They now all want me to apologize to all of them and work for their friendship again, since they believe that I was in the wrong, but I feel like I didn't do any wrong. So, was I the a-hole? Wow, sounds like you just cut a bunch of cancer out of your life. Congratulations! Your lawyers told you it's fraud. Why haven't you said those words to these people? If they still want you to commit fraud, explain to them you're not a stupid criminal, and it's not your fault someone couldn't use common sense handling a grill and hot coals. They made these plans, they planned poorly, they damaged the roof, and they're responsible. Not one of those incredibly stupid, short-sighted decisions involved you. Furthermore, doesn't your complex make you provide insurance before moving in? She just didn't get any, and wants other people to cover her irresponsibility? I don't know what's worse here, dumping smoldering coals into a trash can you know is filled with flammable material knowingly, or trying to blame the woman who didn't eat anything off the damn grill because she won't cover your stupidity. You're not the a-hole in any way. Those two girls owe you an apology first, then the rest can apologize for their sheep behavior. They're all in the wrong. Just to clarify, I did tell them what the lawyers and old agents said, and the girl got mad at one of our other friend because their mom was one of the lawyers I spoke with. They're only mad at themselves because you refused to play their game. The only real loser would be you if you did actually do that. F that. I've done some shady stuffs, but don't mess with insurance and taxes. Also, aren't all renters required to have renter's insurance? They won't renew my lease until I prove I've renewed my insurance. My building did require proof, but we had 3 months after move-in to provide it, and they weren't strong record keepers, so they didn't follow up. Was she contacted personally or something? Did they say they know who is involved? Yes, they have her key taps on the entry to the door, and the grill owner on camera leaving her apartment, going to the roof and coming back to her apartment. Last story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to pay my boomer in-laws rent while I renovate their house, with only the option to buy half after they've died? Father-in-law inherited a house from his parents, which he has rented out for the past 20-plus years. The house has not been maintained in this time and is now in need of serious renovation. Dear husband and brother-in-law were always told they would inherit the house like he did. Mother-in-law and father-in-law have their own property that has been mortgage-free for years. Until last year, me and dear husband were living overseas, as were my brother-in-law and his wife. They are settled overseas and will not return to the UK. We, however, are now settling here. Luckily, father-in-law's spare house was free when we arrived home and moved in. The kitchen had disintegrated, ceilings had come down, there was damp on the walls. Legally, there was no way they could have re-rented it. We have been working hard to get the house back into a decent standard. We've been cleaning, plastering, decorating, etc. We had expressed to mother-in-law and father-in-law that we would like to stay in the house permanently and make it into a proper family home. The house needs about £100,000 worth of renovations. We were hoping that father-in-law would agree to sign the house over to brother-in-law and dear husband now, and I would buy brother-in-law's share. Brother-in-law isn't moving back and is also happy that we are back home to look after his parents in their old age. We understand that father-in-law gets a top-up to his pension from rent, and we're happy to continue paying this, but with our names as owners. We thought that this way, everyone got what they wanted. Father-in-law gets his pension top-up with none of the landlord responsibilities. Brother-in-law gets a cash lump sum and free elderly care for his parents. Me and dear husband get a house that we love and keep in the family. Mother-in-law and father-in-law get their grandkids around the corner from them and family to look after them in their old age. Boy, was I wrong. My in-laws have informed me that we can stay living in the house, but pay £500 a month rent until they both die, in about 20 years plus. I am welcome to spend my money on doing the renovations the house needs, but there will be no legal protection other than they will not legally kick me out, as long as me and dear husband are married. Once mother-in-law and father-in-law have both passed, the house will go to brother-in-law and dear husband. At that point, I can buy out brother-in-law, and the money I've paid in renovations will not be taken into consideration. And in the meantime, I can look after them in their old age. I didn't react well to this, and this is where I could be the a-hole. I told the father-in-law in no uncertain terms that I would not be doing this, and that me, dear husband, and the kids will buy our own place, which will be closer to dear husband's work and near better schools. We'll be about 40 minutes away from them, not too far away, but not close enough to look after their daily needs in their old age. Now everyone is upset, and apparently it's all my fault. I admit I could have handled it better, but how could they think that me paying them rent for 20 years, renovating the house, and then handing over at least £200,000 to brother-in-law when I am in my 60s was even financially possible? How do they think brother-in-law is going to be able to look after them from overseas? I had to read this a couple times to understand it all, so please correct me if I made any errors. I kind of think everyone sucks here. You, and your husband I assume, basically wanted your parents to give to your husband and his brother a house that admittedly needs a lot of work for nothing now, instead of waiting to inherit it when they die in the future. Now, I wouldn't say that this idea was wrong initially, but your in-laws are not a-holes for not wanting to do that. And you are kind of an a-hole for getting mad that they won't do that. On the flip side, your in-laws are a-holes for expecting you and your husband to move into this dilapidated house, pay rent, and pay for renovations on top of that. And in that case, I don't blame you for saying no to that and just buying something else. In my mind, this should have gone one of two ways. Either your in-laws pay to bring the house up to code or whatever, and then you and your husband rent it from them, with all of the normal tenants' rights. Or you two live there without paying rent and come to some sort of agreement about you and your husband paying for or doing renovations. But the expectation that y'all put money into renovating a house that you don't own is wild to me. That's the point of having a landlord, and just because y'all are a family doesn't change that. Edit, after more explanation from OP, not the a-hole. This isn't just the house. They also wanted OP to look after them as well. And in the meantime, I can look after them in their old age. So £500 a month rent, plus the time and costs of renovations, plus elder care. Then at the end they can pay the improved value of house to brother-in-law. Info: how does your husband feel about all this? We had to move back home so quickly because he got seriously unwell, and as a result of this illness, basically exploded mine and our kids' lives. I got us back home to his parents because I thought that would give him the best chance of recovery, alcohol addiction. During this time, mother-in-law told me, just go back to your own family. Dear husband is now 8 months sober, has his life back on track, has our relationship back on track, has his kids' lives back on track. His parents were there when we were broken, and he wants to repay them, but not on the terms they're expecting. This has caused a lot of honest conversations between us, and he is 100% behind his marriage and daughters.